Merry Meet. In this lecture, we will be discussing the celebration of Mabon, also pronounced Mabon, Mabon, or Mabon. This celebration falls during the autumn equinox. In the Northern Hemisphere, this is September 19th through the 22nd, and in the Southern Hemisphere, this falls between March 19th and March 22nd. Now, this is the celebration of the final harvest. It is also seen as the witches' Thanksgiving. Now, before I go any further, I need to point out a couple of things. The biggest thing is Mabon was not celebrated by the pagans. In fact, Mabon is purely a Wiccan holiday. In 1970, Aidan Kelly came up with the name for the celebration, mainly because the current wheel of the year felt imbalanced, and there's sort of a reason why it was imbalanced. As I stated, Mabon is the autumn equinox and seen as the final harvest celebration, and this is key as to why it was not celebrated by pagan people. As we know, pagans lived off the land and were mainly farmers. As the autumn equinox approached, they were not celebrating, they were working. They were harvesting crops, preparing for the first frost, and working on storing food and making sure that things lasted through the winter months. So this was not a time for party and rejoicing, but a time for hard work. Now, with the invention of grocery stores and refrigeration, we no longer have the same focus. So we celebrate the idea of the harvest. So with the autumn equinox, we are beginning the fall months. So we are looking at correspondences that fall under this same time of year. And we see the colors are the deeper oranges, the golds, the reds, the browns, which are the colors of the leaves at this time of year. The foods that are focused on the late harvest foods are grains, squash, such as pumpkins, and apples. We also tend to get into the more flavorful spices that help warm, like ginger and cinnamon. The air is cooling at this time, so we tend to look towards things that help warm us up. The name Mabon is theorized comes from the Welsh myth of Mabon ap Medron, who was the son of Medron, the Great Mother, which makes him Great Son. Now, he is an important part of the Arthurian legends. He was a bard who sung of the achievements of Arthur. Now, why Kelly chose to name the celebration for him, I'm not completely sure, other than his mother being seen as a harvest and fertility deity. Most of the stories of Mabon seem to focus on the Arthurian legend and the fact that he was stolen from his mother at 3 days old. Now, I would like to point out the similarities here with the idea of the Madonna and Child in Christian mythology. We can see the connection of the idea of Mary as Great Mother and Jesus as Great Child. So, and here we also have a son who, though many years later, being taken from his mother and rising 3 days later. So we do see similarities with these different mythologies. We also can see here another myth with Demeter and Persephone, and we know that when Persephone begins her descent back into the underworld is here at this time of the autumn equinox. So we see a combinations of mother and child stories here during this time. Though we look at this time as one of hard work and a time of things coming to an end, the light getting dimmer, at this point in our journey we now see as a time of giving thanks to what we have accomplished. Many Wiccans and pagans now come to see this time as a sort of witchy Thanksgiving, which is an appropriate way of looking at it. Since most of us are not farmers and not focusing on our final harvest, we should look at the things we have accomplished over the year. Keep in mind, in most traditions, we look at Samhain as the new year, so Mabon is seen as the end of the year. So we should look at everything we have done and celebrate that we have made it through one more year. So now you know a little more about this holiday, and hopefully it helps you in celebrating it. Thank you for listening. Mary Part.